Hi everyone, Amy here, and today I'm going to use a bunch of different crafty goodies together to really step up my card. So let's jump right in. Now this is a stencil from a Colorful Life Designs. It's a 6x9 and it's called Organic Doodles. I'm just going to get this set up over a panel of 110 pound cardstock. And then here's a photo of the card that I'm going to make for you today. You can see it has a lot of different elements and techniques, but nothing difficult. And it really gave me a way to kind of step up my card, which is something that my friend Mari requested recently, was a way to kind of use up different items in the craft room and really step up the card. So this is my answer to that, and I hope you like how it turns out. But basically I'm just doing some simple ink blending. I actually don't even have any ink pads out. I'm just using residual ink from my blending brushes. If you've watched my other videos, you'll see that I use these blending brushes often, but I don't usually clean them in between. I tend to leave the ink on the brush knowing that I'll come back and use them at some point, and it gives me the opportunity to kind of create more of a subtle pastel background rather than a more, punchy in the face, bright sort of color. So I'm just working through a few different colors here. I'm kind of thinking that I want to use ones that aren't necessarily right next to each other on the color wheel, but that kind of play nicely together. So I'm just kind of grabbing different blending brushes. Now, if I did use pixie spray on this, it would hold the stencil down a lot better. But as you could see, between my hands and the magnets, I didn't really have any issues. Now this is an older stamp set. I don't know if it's still available. If it is, I will link it in the video description box below. So just expand that area and scroll down. But I wanted to use some things that I've kind of had in my crafty stash and haven't really used yet. So I busted out this gorgeous kind of, whimsical looking floral stamp. And I'm going to use some black pigment ink just to stamp this down on top of the ink blended panel. So this is two techniques so far. I did some ink blending and stenciling, and now I'm doing some simple stamping. Now this pigment ink does take a little while to dry. As you can see, I have to be kind of mindful of it because it won't dry as quickly as a dye ink. A dye ink will really soak into the paper, whereas a pigment will kind of sit on top of it and take a little bit longer to dry. So you could absolutely sprinkle some clear embossing powder on this or heat set it, but ultimately just give it a little bit of a chance to dry. Now this is a mix and match frames die set from Altenew. It's super fun. I didn't get it all too long ago. I haven't used it that much yet, but I really like the different frame options in there. As you can see, you have the one with the holes around the edge. For this one, I'm using the deckled edge. Now it does cut it down, as you can see, quite a bit smaller than A2 size, but I don't mind that because I like the white framing that it creates when you attach this panel to a card base. So again, I did do the inking and the card base all in that 110 pound Neenah Classic Crest Solar White. Now this is one of my absolute favorite Altenew products. I am obsessed with their 3D embossing folders. This one is called Modern Squares 3D. And so this is a third technique to kind of step up your card. So we have stenciling, stamping, and now dry embossing and die cutting. So you can see all these things together really step up your card, but it really doesn't take a lot of time, and it's certainly not difficult. So a lot of these items you might already have in your stash. So just think about the different ways that you can use these techniques or these products together to really step up your card. I find that's an easy way to do it and really get more mileage out of my crafty stash. So here I have some incredibly sticky, I think it's 1 inch, maybe even thicker than 1 inch now that I'm looking at it, but it's a foam tape from scrapbook.com. I will link that as well below, but very sticky, very durable foam tape here. And you can see I'm like, oh yeah, it's probably not dry. Got to be careful not to stick my finger in it here. So I'm going to remove the backer and then place this directly on the 110 pound card base. So I'm just kind of lining this up just to make sure it's an even margin all the way around. And the foam tape really wants to kind of bend it on me. So I'm really kind of using my fingers just to hold it as flat as I can to make sure that I get it lined up nice and straight here. And I press that down. You can see here I'm shopping my sentiment book. This is my storage solution for my die cut sentiments. I do have a separate folder for my critters, which are kind of stamped and colored, and this is my way of kind of batching and speeding up the process of card making, is just having a lot of these different components ready to go. You can see this one. I don't have all the little pieces popped out. That's just a way to make it a little bit more stable during storage. But you absolutely can pop out these little extra pieces when you're ready to use it. So I'm just kind of, you know, going through my book and figuring out what kind of layout, what kind of card ultimately I want to make, because I haven't even decided that yet. And then I come across this Celebrate die, which is just the perfect size for this composition that I've chose. Now, I don't know if this die, I think it's from Photoplay. I don't think it's available anymore, but if it is, I will link it in the video description box below. Now here I'm using my little sticker tool here just to basically turn this into a sticker, because I don't want to mess with the liquid glue at this point. Now here I'm using a bone folder here just to really press it down. Now you can run this through your die cutting machine with a lot of pressure and it will get rid of the little sticky glue bits, but as you can see here, I'm too lazy to take it off screen and run it through my die cutting machine. But I have been figuring out the right sort of sandwich to do that technique. But this is already kicked up a notch, right? I mean, I've already got like multiple techniques, and this is where I drew the line, evidently. It's like, no, I'm not going to go to my die cutter again. I just, I drew the line there. But I use my sticky tool. It's no big deal. Just kind of use that to kind of snap back the little glue bits that come out. And it really doesn't show when all is said and done. And I basically just made this die cut a glorified sticker, which eliminates me from having to use liquid glue and have that oozing out the side. So, just push that down right onto the card, and you can use a little adhesive eraser if you do have any extra residual glue sticking out. But here I'm just going to lay down a couple little blobs of liquid glue, and I'm doing it in odd numbers, 3 on the bottom and 2 on the top. That's usually my go-to. And I have these really pretty iridescent looking sequins, and I have a smattering of those to kind of put on the little bits of liquid glue, and I have some bigger ones and smaller ones. I like to work in odd numbers. I just find it more visually appealing, but I'm struggling here. I got to get them flipped over to the right side, and then I'm using this little jewel picker just to kind of lay these down on the card. But this is just a fun way to kind of use up your crafty stash. Maybe use some items from your craft room that have been neglected, or maybe stamp sets you haven't used yet. But you can see there's tons of dimension here. Lots of wow factor. It didn't take a lot of time, but it was a fun way to combine different techniques and products just to kind of step up your card. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the thumbs up and consider subscribing. And I appreciate you spending time with me today. I'll catch you next time. Bye.